Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. So we tend to bring you this video segment in the morning times generally to catch you up on some of that, let's say, sports news that you might have missed out on when you were catching up on some all-important rest. Because whilst you and me might actually need a lot of rest, the world of sport doesn't really stop. So without further ado, let's quickly get to what's making news in the world of sport. And we'll start off with something rather controversial. There's a Pakistan cricketer by the name of Azam Khan who could be in a little bit of hot water because he had displayed a support for the Palestine people on his bat. Now, whilst you may agree or disagree with the statement that he's made, the simple fact of the matter is that any cricket tournament that comes under the purview of or which is sanctioned by let's say cricketing boards that come directly under the ICC. In this case, it was done in a Pakistan domestic tournament, so that is technically sanctioned by the PCB. You're not allowed any kind of political, messaging to be displayed anywhere on your kit or on your uniform. So it's definitely a problematic thing, and he could very well be in some trouble for it, given he very openly displayed it. It wasn't just on his clothes or anywhere else like that where it was public. It was on his bat, which is something that's always going to be in the focus of the cameras. And again, as I said, you can agree, you can disagree, but the fact is it is something that is very much in breach of the rules that are in place by ICC that want to ensure that the sport remains politically neutral. There's no politics and sports mixture, so you will not see anything of that sort take place or should not, in theory. You've seen it, and so Azam Khan might be in a bit of trouble. In some more positive news, Rinku Singh was once again there to apply the finishing touches as India secured a convincing victory over Australia in the second T20I. And afterwards, current skipper Suryakumar Yadav said that, the way Rinku has been playing recently reminds me a lot of someone. You know exactly it is who I'm talking about. Now, that someone, again, wasn't named, but everyone inferred very, very clearly that he was, in fact, very subtly comparing Rinku Singh to the kind of, or at least the kind of performances that Rinku has been putting to a certain MS Dhoni. Now, no one is saying that Rinku and Dhoni are of the same level, of the same class, nothing of the sort. But you have to admit that the way Rinku has been performing in recent times has been pretty good. He has been coming in towards the death overs and ensuring that the impetus in the innings remains. In fact, in his T20I career so far, which is admittedly pretty much in the nascent stages, his strike rate at the death is over 200, which is phenomenal whichever way you want to look at it. So one can only hope that Rinku continues to get better in that role, because he would provide India with some much needed fireworks lower down the order, just as he has done in the past couple of IPL seasons for the Kolkata Knight Riders. In another bit of news, and this is a really interesting one, the qualifiers in the African region have been taking place for the T20 World Cup, and Uganda ended up pulling off an upset in a half when they beat Zimbabwe. Now, why is this such an upset? Because Zimbabwe technically are very much not just a full member nation, but also a test playing nation, someone who do have a history and a legacy when it comes to test cricket and even ODI cricket. If you're looking at it, especially in the 80s and 90s, they were a pretty formidable side. Uganda ended up defeating Zimbabwe, and what this does, aside from of course ensuring Uganda made history by, for the first time, defeating a full member nation team at the first time of asking, but also more importantly, what he did was throw Zimbabwe's chances of qualifying for the World Cup in some doubt. Why? Because Zimbabwe currently only have 2 points, and right now they need to not only win their remaining matches but hope that other results go their way. Hardly an ideal position to be in, and it's a bit of a surprise considering that Zimbabwe, if you remember, in 2022 ended up causing quite the upset when they ended up defeating Pakistan. Now they may very well not even be playing the World Cup come 2024. A little bit more cricket news, and it was surprised absolutely no one when Ben Stokes was released by the Chennai Super Kings, because you remember that it was them only who had announced that Stokes had said that they're going to be he's going to be taking a break from the IPL this year to manage his workload, which is totally understandable. It's been a long summer, and then of course the World Cup also came in. He will of course be undergoing surgery to ensure his knee problems, which he's been dealing with since the Ashes, are behind him, and so that he's ready for the test series against India. So there's been plenty of talk about him managing his and the way he chose to do so was by resting in the IPL. Therefore, no surprise whatsoever when he was released. And former India opener Akash Chopra himself said that it was of no surprise whatsoever to see it happen, because again he had announced that he'd be resting, opting out of this year's IPL. Would the team then actually choose to keep him on and ensure that his salary is pretty much sitting there on the wage bill and taking up some space in the salary cap? No. And what was more, no one would want taking him on for even for that much money for sure. So it made no sense but to release him. He also did hint that maybe there was something else going on there. Maybe this was something that was a bit of a nudge from the franchise, given that now with Stokes being released and Amati Raidu choosing to retire for the end of last year, so also technically again his salary is also freed up entirely. CSK do have a good bit of money to spend in the auction that will be taking place in December. Pretty interesting times. You can let us know if you agree with what it is that he said. We're just telling you the obvious. Now, moving on from the world of cricket to the world of football, Lautaro Martinez ended up making the score sheets when Inter Milan were taking on Juventus, and what that did was that, of course, aside from ensuring that spoils were shared in what was a tightly contested derby in Serie A, Inter remained on top of the Serie A table. So coming into this, Juventus knew they needed a win to overhaul the 2-point lead that Inter Milan currently have, but Lautaro's goal ensured that the deficit stays at 2 points. It didn't increase, it didn't decrease, and it's a good thing really going into what should be a busy time in the Christmas time period, because again, you'll be having some Champions League fixtures, and of course, the league really does tend to kick into overdrive at that point. And once Christmas time arrives, you know exactly who would be the favourites. So Inter staying on top, very, very good news to them. Speaking of staying on top, Rodrigo of Real Madrid ensured that they ended up going on top of La Liga when he ended up scoring 2 goals and setting up a third in their recent La Liga match. Now, what was more surprising is the fact that they're only temporarily on top, because the team that they're competing with right now, not Barcelona, defending champions, but Girona, who have been scripting the underdog story for the ages this year by competing with the big boys at the top of the table, will be playing later on Monday. But Real Madrid right now are looking like a team reinvigorated. Rodrigo, someone who has sometimes been used more as an impact player than a regular starter, not only scoring 2 but also assisting the third for the new star boy Jude Bellingham. Interesting times really at Real Madrid. It does seem like they are the favourites for the title come this season. And sticking with more football news, Manchester United winger Alejandro Garnacho ended up, making a lot of buzz when he scored a beautiful bicycle kick goal against Everton. It was one that drew comparisons not only to Garnacho's idol Cristiano Ronaldo, but also the similar kind of bicycle kick that Wayne Rooney had pulled off years back against Manchester City. It was a phenomenal goal to watch, no two ways about it. Ensured that United beat Everton 3-0, and therefore at least took some pressure, some heat off of manager Erik ten Hag, because there have been plenty of question marks over his future in recent times, but at least for now those seem to be gone. Last but not least, and a very interesting bit of news, Italy are Davis Cup champions thanks in no small part to Yannick Sinner's heroics in the Davis Cup final. And this is a historic thing for Italy really, because this is the first time in nearly 50 years that Italy have lifted the tennis trophy, or which is of course referred to as the World Cup of Tennis, because it involves players turning out for their nations and representing them in a set of multiple matches really. Sinner's heroics ensured that they could of course finally get that moment of glory. Italian tennis finally gets a big moment where they won the Davis Cup. The real key now for Sinner will be to ensure that he can kick on and also, get into the groove of things when it comes to his singles career, because Sinner's always been seen as someone with a lot of promise, but the unfortunate reality is he hasn't quite lived up to it on court. But that's it from us on this edition of the Morning Wrap. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to download the Sports Tech app, and if you're already on the channel, go right ahead, check out some other videos we've done, and stay tuned to Sports Today. We've got plenty more coming your way. For now though, from my side, it's goodbye.